Assalamualaikum, Tashhau, Ipidilu Kenge Vanikam, and welcome to the second episode of Sembang Santai with me, Afiq and Zarif. Unfortunately, Salah couldn't come. She's back in university.
Gambang.
Yeah, she's back in Gambang. On today's podcast, the podcast where we sembang about Malaysia, on today's topic, guess what? Youth concern, specifically on jobs.
So Afiq, jobs. What do you think about it? Are you worried? Because I think in about a few years we're gonna enter the job market. We'll be the one setting up resume and stuff.
I think it's should be a big concern because let's say yesterday you were still asking a toilet pass from your teacher. Teacher, can I go to the toilet? And then there might be a chance he or she could say no or even yes. And then the next day you are literally making decisions on your education, to what jobs you're gonna own, to what jobs you're gonna have in the future, and you are making a decision that will set the trajectory of your life for the next 60 years. So that is a big concern for young people, youths specifically, and that's what we're going to talk about. So to give an introduction of today's topic, we're firstly going to talk about UBIs.
Universal basic income.
So if you watch or hear or observe, what do you call it, American politics, you'll be very familiar with one candidate, Andrew Yang. And what he proposed that was quite different from other candidates, even though he's irrelevant now and he's out of the race. He talked specifically about universal basic income and the need for it. So universal basic income basically means that irrespective of whether you're working, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, you get $1,000 a month into your account. Supposedly the government doesn't tax it lah, so you get $1,000 to spend on anything. And the reason why he did that, or the logic behind it, because us as Malaysians, I'm pretty sure most of us hasn't heard the concept. Will be like, "What, they're getting money for free, right?"
Yeah. They're against it, feeling that it's a form of socialism.
Yeah, you can say that as well. Like honestly, if I get okay, if we had to compare, and what would $1,000 be, and we try to find the equivalent in Malaysia, it would be 1.6. I'm not like, you changing currency or whatever, currency exchanger. I'm comparing this based on what do you call it, parity.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right, so like what I can buy with $1,000 in America is also what I can buy in Malaysia, and that would be 1,600 ringgit. Okay, so like I think we sidetrack a bit there. Honestly, if I get 1.6 thousand, I would like maybe wait for 2 months and maybe buy Gucci shoes.
Yeah. There's also a concern. I mean, since we have sidetracked a bit, let's continue to sidetrack. There is a concern that when you put a UBI of 1,000, people will take it for granted in terms of being more lazy.
Sure. I could see that. But the reason why Andrew Yang came up, not like came up, but like proposed this, was because he conceded to this world in the future where automation will take into play, right? Into the Industrial Revolution 4.0. What this means is that a lot of people will be left without jobs, or a lot of menial jobs will be taken over, and it's much harder for you to get a stable income. So they were like, why not give everybody $1,000? Because the logic is that the money will come back to the government, right? If I buy those Gucci shoes, government will tax. They get tax out of it, and it goes back into the government. And I think this highlights a lot about job security and the whole topic about jobs in the future generally, that there is a candidate, not in Malaysia but abroad, that made this into a big problem and proposed to give every single person in the United States of America $1,000.
But since his reason of doing this in the first place is to ensure that there is a stable, everyone has a stable income in the future. But I feel that they may be, or that is already better option. I think we've sidetracked too much, and we'll get into this later on.
Okay.
All right. So effects of unemployment.
Wait, no. Not yet, not yet. I haven't finished talking about UBIs. So like this argument of what Andrew Yang proposed was automation will take over, but there's also a counter argument for that, saying that automation will help humanity, because when you have a lot of robots handling stuff, it means there's going to be more demand for AI technology, more demand for IT experts. For the robots, there needs to be people to train them, to sell them, to repair them. So indirectly, there will be a creation of jobs. But what I'm assuming here is that he was more focused on the laborers, the people working in factories. And to be honest, the people that he was targeting were swing states anyway, right? Laborers. So I think it's logical to to take into account of that as well. And the second thing I want to talk about here is the effects of unemployment. And what I did a lot of reading, and I'm gonna pose to you this. One of the effects of unemployment would be higher suicide rates. So we may see a future in Malaysia where a lot of people kill themselves specifically because they couldn't find a job. So there's this paper I read. Does unemployment have asymmetric effect on suicide rates? A study from 1928 till 2013 shows that elderly people who are between 55 and 64 years old of age have a higher likelihood of suicide. And there's two reasonings for this that sociologists made. The first link was that being in a job means you have co-workers, you have friends,
You have a life.
you have a life, and also you get benefits from that, right? You had supposedly Medicare, Medicaid. I'm just putting this out because I am honestly not that sure into the specifications of the insurance system in the US, but you did get a form of benefit working, right? And that was security for you.
And your pension for your afterlife, you feel
Yeah.
that you don't have to worry.
Yeah, but on the aspect of friends, if you lose your job, you lose that support structure. And the second link that sociologists made was that the more direct one lah, financial problems, relationship problems, diminishing social status when you don't have a job anymore.
I think I would like to add something by saying that loss of a job. I think in a way, this is my own opinion, but in a way, it's also losing a sense of purpose.
Yeah, it's a sense of purpose.
And what are we without purpose?
And if that really is true, then a universal basic income would probably hold no water, because you may get money, but you aren't able to participate in something that's bigger than you, right?
The feeling of belonging.
A feeling of belonging. I think a good way that this paper illustrated and try to make that link using examples was during economic recessions, which necessarily means that a lot of people would be let down, unemployment would skyrocket. There was a huge spike in suicide rates. So generally, if you hear the numbers I'm going to give you, you'll be like, oh, it's not that bad. But you compare that to suicide rates decades before, it is a much bigger difference. So during post the Great Depression in the US, there was about 22 people out of 100,000 people killing themselves, which seemed little, but you take into account of the population that time, around 1930s, which if I'm not mistaken was 127 million. That's more than 20,000 people killing themselves. That's a major loss. So like, on the news, we scramble when we hear, oh, this person killed himself or herself, and that's a headline already. Just imagine more than 20,000 people are doing that in a year. So that's quite crazy, to be honest, and ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's just a fact that you gotta wrap yourself around. So let's get into the actual topic, jobs. Firstly, let's define what unemployment means. Students are not unemployed because we are still studying. Unemployment means basically people who wants jobs but couldn't get a job to begin with, right? That's the definition of being unemployed. They're interested in working but they couldn't access work. So what is the unemployment rate in Malaysia?
Surprisingly, we have quite a good uh, our unemployment rate is quite in a good spot. It's actually 3.3%, and for the year of 2019, we took this from the Department of Statistics Malaysia. However, based on an article by a news, I think it was Star, was it? Uh, Officially, for in the 3.3%, 10.9% is actually youth unemployment. Youth meaning those who are recently graduated or 5 years after they graduate in that area. This is actually quite concerning.
It is.
Seeing that if the youth can't get job, it will affect the economy badly in terms of again money flows in and out. So when the youth doesn't, not necessarily the youth, because the youth are the
You sidetrack too much, bro. You sidetrack too much.
get back to the point. Yeah, so the it's youth is 10.9% officially. I'm just gonna stop there.
It's fine, it's fine. We're all a bit drowsy. I just finished class. Oh my god. But you wanna know something cool? So like people assume that low unemployment rates usually is a good thing. It's a sign of
Booming economy.
yeah, but there's actually a quite paradoxical fact that is it isn't necessarily a good thing when unemployment drops too low. So there's a lot of reasoning to this, but from a economist's point of view, for every job you create, there's a cost associated to it. And what I assume here is the cost to, the benefits that you get. It could be KWSP, it could be Pekeso,
Pension,
and pensions and such,
Sosco.
right? And when unemployment drops too low, that means everybody, most of everyone in Malaysia has a job. What it means is that there would be what I'm saying here, there would be something called a labor gap, if I'm not mistaken. It basically means that the cost that you get from having a person participating in the labor workforce, that cost is higher compared to the cost you get back. So what I mean by this is that let's say a person participates in the workforce during this very low unemployment rates, right? And the government has to put in quite a lot of money for your pension and such, as we talked about. But the productivity that you bring to the workforce and the money you bring to the government by having a job means that you get salary, the government could tax you, doesn't justify it. So there is a gap of productivity. So that's what economists are currently struggling with, not allowing the unemployment rate to dip down too low, just allowing it to rest in a sweet position
Spot of 3.5% to 4.2, roughly.
Yeah, roughly around that area. So a utopia isn't a world where everybody gets a job using our current understanding of economics. Some people cannot have a job,
But they
sadly
still contribute.
yeah, but they still
So,
contribute.
another interesting fact is the higher an article by a student from one of the universities in Malaysia saying that the higher the unemployment rate, it will cause the productivity to increase. I took quite some time to wrap my head around it. Maybe Afiq could explain.
Basically, if unemployment is high, productivity also is high. So maybe you could illustrate this by, let's say, this boss in a company X, right? Only employs 5 people and give them a workload worth 10 people. So those 5 people are forced to work extra hours.
Because they know the unemployment rate is high and they're not willing to take the risk to quit the job.
Exactly.
So in a way that the boss has a more leverage, and the effect of that is that the people will live a horrible life.
Yeah, but the converse is also true. When unemployment rate dips too low, it's bad for companies because let's say I'm company X and I'm trying to employ really good workers, but I don't want to spend that much money. Right? I do the salary I'm giving out there isn't that competitive. It's like basically bare minimum, which is basically what they're doing right now. A lot of people won't come to my company because when unemployment rates drop too low, it means people on the ground have a lot of choice. I can go to company X, I can go to company Y, I can go to company Z. Basically, more people now have more choices than ever because a lot of companies are hiring.
And plus, we have to take the effect of globalization, seeing that there's a lot of opportunities abroad also.
But specifically in the perspective of youth, us people, the rakyat, we really love jobs, right? And whatever economic reasoning that we just talked about, a lot of people don't care. And I think that there is truth in that. And that's what we're gonna talk about later, right? How even though how me and Zarif, I think we think that having low unemployment rate is very good in the perspective of people, and that's how it should be. So let's see some more numbers. There's a lot of numbers in this episode, honestly. So 21 public sector universities and 38 private sector universities produce something around like 51,000 graduates a year, but nearly 60% of them remain unemployed after 1 year of graduating. And there are also 5,000 postgraduate students sitting for doctoral programs each year. And
Jaw-dropping numbers.
it is. And I think it's different across different occupations. Like, as far as I know, medic students got hit the hardest because after you graduate from medic school, you gotta wait a few months to get posted to become a
What's it called? In-house.
houseman. You need to do your housemanship at the government hospital, of course, but it usually take months. Now I heard more than 2 years now. Some of my friends, they've been working for 2 years. So what it does, it creates this working class known as the precariats, which we'll discuss further, but I'm just gonna touch on it a bit. Basically, a feature of this group of people basically means that they're doing jobs that are lower compared to the education qualification that they have. So you can see a master student working at at Shell or McDonald's.
I mean, one thing to say about this, I believe there's a general perception that if you graduate with a degree and you can't get a job, you tend to, if you have the financial capability, you tend to go for a doctoral or for a master in the hopes that with a higher qualifications you can get a job. But that's not true at all, is it?
That's not true, but we'll discuss this further when we talk about what we can improve on, right? But let's talk about
Government is doing.
what the government is doing. Oh my god.
What government?
What government? What prime
Which
minister?
government?
Which government?
So since today is the 11th of March, seeing that how the political landscape has changed in the past week, and we don't have much data from the current government, we're going to take a data from the past Pakatan Harapan government on what they have tried to implement. Whether this will go or whether the current government will approve it is another story, but we'll just talk about what they have done. So they have done, in their budget 2020, they have announced Malaysian at Works, which has 4 components, but the one that we are interested in are graduates at work. Graduates at work is specifically for hiring unemployed graduates who have been out of work for a year. So basically, what is it? What is graduates at work, and is it good or is it bad? Graduates at work is a way of is the government's effort to encourage companies, government sector and public sector, to hire this. As we said earlier, 60% of graduates remain unemployed after 1 year. So in the hopes that giving companies incentive of, I think it's about 300 ringgit to 500 ringgit, for each worker that they hire who have been unemployed for 6 months or more, right?
So the graduate themselves, they get 500 ringgit plus with their salary each month if they are employed. The flip side is that the employers, they get 300 ringgit for taking up these people to begin with. And there is a counter argument to this proposal, which is companies will now purposely not take up people
For a certain amount of time.
for a certain amount of time, specifically for 1 year, and then they employ those people and tell the government, hey, we've been employing a lot of unemployed people, and these people dah mengganggu for 1 year, so give us those 300 ringgit, right?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It can be manipulated in such an easy way. Sadly, the government was not in power long enough to we it was not in power long enough for us to see whether it will work.
Yeah,
Sadly lah.
sadly. But so like what Lim said, Lim Gong Eng, was that the government supposedly expected to pay around 6.5 billion ringgit over 5 years, and this supposedly created 350,000 jobs for Malaysians. Just remember that there are 4 components. We only discussed one because that's what we're interested in, and and there was another component that touched on foreign workers, but I'm just gonna conclude that and say the effects of that is that it will reduce foreign workers dependency by more than 130,000.
I think there is a general fear worldwide, again back to globalization, that there have been too many foreign workers in the country. It's not only Malaysia, Singapore is feeling the same thing, US has the same thing, and I think it's we should compliment the government, seeing that the incentive that they take to address this kind of issues.
And also like this recent tweet I saw on Twitter, that what construction companies usually do is they take up this unregistered illegal comers, and then after they've completed their job they would report them, and then the police will come, take them out, deport them. Yeah, exactly, they don't have to pay them. What a dirty tactic, but smart. Dirty but smart. Smart but dirty. Okay, terbalik. Okay, but like how, like a lot of people are questioning, how do you justify the cost? Because 6.5 billion ringgit,
It's a lot.
like 2.6, Najib times 3.
Yeah.
Somewhere around that ballpark, right? But just remember that the reason why government has invested so much subsidies and all, why they want you to have a job and why they want you to have a high pay from when you are little until you are an adult, is because they can tax you.
Yeah.
They love to tax
We
you.
have to understand that whatever money you said earlier about Andrew Young, right? Whatever money that the government gives to the people, it will flow back to them.
Exactly.
Directly or indirectly, it will flow back. So I don't think there's much of a worry here, because when there's an increase when you give them incentive of 300, 500 ringgit, it will increase their purchasing power. When they purchase more, the economy will increase.
And government has a incentive not to just give you a salary but also give you a high salary as well, because they can only tax you when your annual income after EPF deduction yada 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 amounts to more than 34,000 ringgit. Only then can they tax you. So like people who have menial jobs are unfortunate, the B40s. Fortunately, they are not taxed. But yeah, it just proves a way that government actually has an incentive to uplift these people. So, which is, if you think about it,
It's fair.
it's evil. I like bring them up so I can take their money back.
But they won't feel that way. They
Yeah,
will
of course
feel
not.
that the quality of life,
That's how government works, man.
that the mafia.
So let's move on to the second issue of jobs, low pay.
Oh, this is it's very close to home, because seeing our currency power, it really affects us.
Purchasing power, you mean?
No, I mean our currency itself,
Oh, our
Malaysian
currency,
ringgit.
yeah.
You see, when you receive low pay in a low currency, it makes you feel that you're earning. How do I put it in words?
You're earning little. Like maybe a way to put it is like look at our friends like in the UK.
Yes, when you compare, and again globalization, I'm saying a lot of globalization. We have phones. You see, we have a lot of imports coming from overseas. And when you have low pay in a low currency, you can't afford stuff like iPhones because they are on a standard price.
Yeah, they have standard
You
pricing
see
lah.
what I mean? You low pay plus low currency, but if you have a high pay or more than enough pay in a low currency, you can adjust yourself for financial crisis. You see what I mean? Low pay people are just, it's very dangerous, I
So
think.
maybe we can like put this into a pyramid. The bottom, the base of the pyramid are people who have like little to no access to comfortable amenities in Malaysia. They can't live comfortably in Malaysia.
Living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, paycheck to paycheck. And maybe the second base, the second base would be people who are living quite comfortable, but when they go out to have a vacation in UK or anywhere in the world,
Or
Singapore,
if they can even afford.
they're having a very hard time doing so. And the topmost component of the pyramid would be people who nonetheless enjoy having a high pay because their life is good in Malaysia and abroad Malaysia. So let's talk about low. Okay, we sidetrack again. Low pay. So we found this post on Twitter showing a salary of an engineer based in Kuching in the year 1995, which was 2,000 ringgit. You compare that to an engineer based in Kuching as well in 2020, it's 1,500 ringgit. So if you properly account for inflation, that 2,000 ringgit in 1995 should be 3,600 in 2020. But no, it's going down.
Which is, it's not fair because everything else has been increasing.
But I'm not trying to make a generalization here. Maybe this is such an exclusive case, but it just points out on how polarized it is, how polarized this issue is. So we came up with a few numbers, we contacted a few people, and here are the examples of salaries.
Current salaries
in Malaysia. Zarif?
So a soldier starting, I'm talking about starting pay, yeah. So soldier receive about 1,000 ringgit per month. A legal counsel for the government receive about 7,000 per month. A teacher receive 2,500 per month, and a clerk, a karani, earns about 1,200 a month.
Teachers, man, 2.5k. It's quite low. Like, I was fortunate enough to be taught in a boarding school, and my teachers were amazing. Like, they would come to class. We would have classes, sorry, up until 11 p.m., 12 a.m. in the middle of the night. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't get anything from that. They just got their salary, and when they do their night classes, they don't charge extra. The school wouldn't give them anything, or they didn't demand for anything. And they were amazing. And then I think another thing I want to highlight here is when I go to competitions in around like Putrajaya, because I was in SAS, right, school in Putrajaya. When I go to Sekolah Harian, other daily schools in Putrajaya, what I noticed is that the teachers would usually set up shop, or they would sell products to the co-op, or they would sell it at the canteen, to make an extra buck. Like, it just highlights like how desperate people generally are to live in this economy. Like, and maybe that's why, we have this whole structure of respecting teachers, or maybe respecting doctors for that matter, because honestly they make little money. On another note, what are the trends of jobs right now in Malaysia? I think we're approaching to a more contract-based job. Doctors are now contract-based. Usually if hospital employs you as a medical officer, an MO, you'll probably be there for the rest of your life, or up until you quit. or up until you go private. But right now, it's contract based. So like you're gonna stay here until 2 years. After 2 years, we're gonna review you. If you're bad, we're gonna kick you out.
What do you do when you get kicked out?
Exactly. And we see a lot of companies heading to AI. Rafizi's project, he quit politics to create his own company called Adnixio, which is a company designed to, what do you call it, employ people using AI. So he's basically the company is basically a middleman between people, us youth looking for jobs, and also companies finding workers.
The interesting part I read up a bit is that you can do an interview with the AI.
With an AI, like completely artificial. We're also looking at industries like hotel, hospitality, tourism industries going
Gig
down.
works, gig economy.
Yeah.
This, what is it? Oh yeah, we were supposed to get back to what is it called?
Precariats.
Precariats.
And the final thing to note on the trends of jobs is that we're heading globally even to a world filled with precariats. What are precariats? Precariats are basically people with little to no job security. Grab food drivers, Food Panda drivers, Gojek drivers. Basically people with no job security. So they live paycheck to paycheck. They don't make a monthly income. They make what they work for.
Yeah.
Basically.
And what happens if you break your leg or?
Yeah, no job security. So this is for the first time in history, many people have education levels above the level of labor they expect to obtain. So you can see, as I talked about before, this PhD student who's master student waiting for PhD. A master student waiting for his PhD, working at McDonald's, working in as a Grab food driver. So it's very bad right now.
And the thing about this corporations such as Grab and whatnot, financially, I don't think they are earning a lot of money. They have been in the rate for a few years because it's a startup. They tend to spend a lot of money on promotions, commissions, incentives to get more people on board, which will increase their valuation. And I believe that their end game is to go public. Yeah, companies. I'm not sure what Grab, but companies like Food Panda, when you assume the numbers, this is all based on an assumption. They don't make much money. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's actually a fact because if you look at the company Honest Bee in Singapore, it filed for bankruptcy, had to retrench 60% of its employees, and was not able to pay back the debt that they have. So this causes the economy to stagnate. Is that how you put it, Afiq?
Yeah, I guess we can put it that way. It causes the economy to stagnate. But okay, I think the bottom line question here is like, what now?
I would say education and collaboration between the private sector and the government sector.
So the education system should now be more tailored to the market needs.
Yeah. Adapt. It has to teach the youth how to adapt. Because if you take a comparison of 10 years ago and now, there were no technology 10 years ago. Example, like,
Yeah, I know.
no, wait. I was trying to pick a simple example to understand. Like, last time you had a flip phone.
Yeah.
Now we have an iPhone, which has everything inside. It's very crazy and shocking at how the rate of change is. And there are a lot of jobs that manual labor are being automated. But even jobs like right now, what's it called? Yeah, so example, jobs like designing your web page. They have created websites that allow you to do the front end programming easily.
Are you like promoting Wix.com?
I'm giving
Damn
an example.
annoying. Damn annoying.
Why you
know.
have to say it?
I go to any YouTube video, click on it, first thing that appears. Hey, you want to make a website on Wix.com?
Yeah, so you see, and programming is considered quite new. You see?
It is.
Even if I think it's about 7-8 years old. I mean, proper programming,
Like introduced to students.
introduced students is about 7, 8.
Yeah, somewhere along.
Somewhere there, right? Maybe slightly more. And in that time, they have found an AI or a program that could help you program. You see, it's just crazy at how it's changing. So we need to we Afiq marah letak mic betul-betul.
Hold the mic properly lah.
So I think we need to teach the people studying to be more adaptable, to be more prepared for what's coming ahead. Not in terms of knowledge, but in terms of way of thinking.
That's true.
Like, you can give someone so much. Example, a lawyer, right? You can study the whole law book. But when it goes to a court and hearing, it doesn't matter how much you had studied. It matters how good you are. That is basically the, to put it short and sweet of it.
Short and
sweet. That's the true meaning of it. That's what I mean by good education. Talking about education in Malaysia also.
I think I want to make a second point also when it comes to education in Malaysia. I think we have focused too much, not just the education system, but as a society, what we think of is we think highly of technical skills, being a doctor, being an accountant, being an engineer. But we don't think that highly of people entering business, people entering, what else? Okay lah, business. That's the only example I have. But yeah, because of this, there's like two effects. The first thing is that you don't appreciate business to a point where a lot of people are flocking in and coming up with business degrees, attempting to open up their own business, properly attaining education to make like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people they endorse themselves in having a business, but they don't have a degree in doing business. They don't know how to properly manage, properly keep stock levels up, properly have able to put in good values of teamwork into the company. The most you have is people selling sneakers online. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to diss them, but I think it highlights a bigger problem of how our society perceives these kinds of jobs, and we would rather take up technical jobs like being a doctor.
They don't dare to take the risk.
Yeah, and the second effect is also there is not much demand to improve the courses. Like I have talked to a few degree friends of mine, and none of them would recommend me taking business in Malaysia because the course is just so menial, to say the least, so boring, so repetitive. You know that going to NUS, one of the hardest courses to get into is business.
Yeah, see, surprisingly, and one of the easiest to go into Malaysia is business.
Yeah, it's like polarized opposites, and for a good reason, because we don't, as a society, push business to be a good choice of occupation, and that should be improved on.
Yeah, it's the mindset.
Yeah, it always boils down to mindset. It always boils down to education.
Talking about education, Singapore has created Skills Future, which they tend to, workers who are, maybe they didn't have the opportunity to study when they were young and worked as cleaners or maybe manual workers, and they get retrenched. So they could sign up for this course and they would be taught about skills that they would need to adapt in the industrial revolution. Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting idea that maybe we could implement in the future or in the near future. Inshallah. We will have a stable government also.
Stable government. Inshallah, that will happen.
Inshallah, we will have a stable government regardless of what party it is. It's very important that we should settle down in terms of political.
Yeah, but we'll discuss that on a different episode. Yeah. There's a lot to discuss.
There's a lot to discuss.
Uncover.
And hopefully the next episode will be on time, yeah, Afiq?
Quite hungry, yeah.
Right.
I want to get dinner.
Alright, okay. Thank you guys for listening.
Where want to get dinner?
Kat bawah je.
Sure. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm still recording. Okay, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Yeah, bye.